Good day, everyone. Today, we will discuss the rise of concern over science and technology in society. But before that, let me introduce the Group 2 members. Shireen Nicole Parak, Minette Ann Medalla, Alisa Sigrid Entelete, and Merly Villaflor.
Middle Ages is a time for exploration and new ideas and way of doings. Many things has been invented to make life easier before, like the things that are used for war, including the swords and machine guns. There were also things that has been invented which are still useful on a daily basis. This includes the papers, calendars, and many more. And that is why Middle Ages were one of the most outstanding and creative periods in the human history. Science and technology in India. During the Middle Ages in India, the medicine started to develop based on preventing diseases and on hygiene. In astronomy, they began in calendar computation based on the motion of the moon and stars. India is also known for their mathematics. They used decimal system, and with the influence of Babylonia and Greece, they developed spherical trigonometry. Actually, sine is derived from an Indian word. Science and technology in China. During the Middle Ages, China is the most technically advanced country in the world. The first Chinese writing was on a flat shoulder bones of cattle and tortoise shells. China is also where the paper making started. It was 140 BC, but it was officially used for writing on 105 AD. Papers are used for clothing, wall decors, and artworks also. China is also where seismograph is developed, which was invented to detect earthquakes. Lastly, the ancient Chinese are the greatest pioneer of acupuncture. Science and technology in Africa. Most of the high school level concepts in mathematics is first developed in Africa. Actually, 35 years ago, the Egypt created a textbook and some of its contents are the division and multiplication of fractions and geometric formula to calculate the area and volume of shapes. In astronomy, the Egyptians charted the movement of the sun and constellation and the cycles of the moon. Medical procedures that we perform up until now, such as surgeries, vaccination, autopsy, bullet removal, and many more, are first performed in ancient Africa. Egypt is known to be the center of alchemy, wherein metals are converted into gold. They try to study human anatomy and pharmacology. Actually, most of the things that we use for treatments are from the Egyptian from North Africa.
Renaissance or 70th century. This refers to the period of the rebirth as age of preparation for the 70th century scientific developments and achievements. During this period, the rapid of science leads to the translation of scientific knowledge from Greek to Latin. Generally described as taking place from the 40th century to the 70th century. The Renaissance promoted the rediscovery of classical philosophy, literature, and art. Some of the greatest thinkers, authors, statesmen, scientists, and artists in human history thrived during this era, while global exploration opened up new lands and cultures to European commerce. The Renaissance is credited with bridging the gap between the Middle Ages and modern-day civilization. Great men of arts and science. Leonardo da Vinci. Italian, considered as one of the greatest artists of this time. I think everyone knows who Leonardo da Vinci is, or at least familiar with his name. Leonardo da Vinci is the painter behind the most notable Mona Lisa and The Last Supper. He has done a lot of notable works, but these two were the well-known or the most widely popular and influential paintings of the Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci is the representative of the Italian Renaissance. He's not just a painter but also a mathematician, scientist, engineer, architect, sculptor, draftsman, and many more. Next is Galen. Galen is a Greek physician and forwarded observations that the rebirth of science in Europe began early as 1543 with the publication of scientific books that challenges previous findings on the geometric universe. Galen regarded anatomy as the foundation of medical knowledge, and he frequently dissected and experimented on such lower animals as the Barbary ape, or known as African monkey, pigs, sheep, and goats. Ginagawa niya ang pagdadissect ng animals to improve surgical skills and for research purposes. Some of his discovery were he distinguished 7 pairs of cranial nerves, described the valves of the heart, and observed the structural differences between arteries and veins. One of his most important demonstrations was that the arteries carry blood, not air. It was taught for 400 years. So moving on to Avicenna, an Arab physician. Avicenna was born in Bukhara, Iran, that is, belonged to Uzbekistan in this time. He is a Muslim physician, the most famous and influential of the philosophers-scientists of the medieval Islamic world. He was particularly noted for his contributions in the field of Aristotelian philosophy and medicine. He composed the Kitab al-Shifa, or the Book of the Cure, a vast philosophical and scientific encyclopedia, and Al-Canon fi Baltib, or the Canon of Medicine, and which is among the most famous books in the history of medicine. On to the last, Andreas Vesalius. Andreas Vesalius is a surgeon and anatomist who laid out in detail the first scientifically accurate description of human anatomy and recognized as the founder of modern medicine. He is a Renaissance physician who revolutionized the study of biology and the practice of medicine by his careful description of the anatomy of the human body. He based his observations by dissecting the body himself, and by that he wrote and illustrated the first comprehensive textbook of anatomy.
Good day everyone, I am Elisa Sigrid Entolete, and I will discuss to you the science and technology from 17th century to the early 19th century Industrial Revolution. The phenomenal process in the transfer of doing work by human hands and fit to the use of the machine was called the Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is a stage of history that goes from 1780 to 1850 and began in England. For almost the entire history of mankind, life has been based on agriculture and livestock. At the end of 18th century, the Englishman James Watt invented, or rather perfected, steam engine. Until then, the artisan had been dedicated to manufacturing of utensils with their own hand in small workshops. But with the arrival of steam engine that changed forever, this machine used the energy of the steam and transformed it into power and moving other machines. These new machines were applied to the industry and began to do the work that artisans used to do. So the small artisan workshops were disappearing, giving way to the big factories. The steam engines was also used for transport, and the first trains and steamboats were manufactured, which facilitated trade and travel between cities and countries. Europe was filled with trains. Next is Joseph Black. Joseph Black was born on April 16, 1728 at Bordeaux, France. He died in November 10, 1799 at Edinburgh, Scotland. He was a British chemist and physicist. He is famous for discovering a latent heat in thermodynamics. So, a latent heat in thermodynamics is the energy absorbed or released by a substance during a change in its physical state, phase that occurs without changing its temperature. Francis Bacon. He proved the utilization and application of knowledge the material pursuit and welfare of society can be advanced and improved. Bacon has been called the father of empiricism. The main idea of Bacon, he argued for the possibility of scientific knowledge based only upon inductive reasoning and careful observation of events in nature. So these are the men who devoted some of their time and efforts in the improvement of scientific knowledge.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Merly Villaflor, and now I'll be the one to report the science and technology in the 19th century and science and technology in the 20th century. Science and technology in the 19th century. It is emerge or rise of the first so-called science-based industries and industrial research laboratory. It is transformed everything from farming to manufacturing. 19th century was the age of machine tools, tools that made tools and machines that made parts for other machines, including interchangeable parts. Invention including the telegraph, typewriter, and the telephone led to the faster and wider means of communication. In other words, 19th century is an industrial revolution kung saan mas tinatangkilik o mas nakilala ang industrial product equipment. From farmer tools to manufacturing tools. Likewise, gumagamit na sila ng telephone, typewriter para mas mapadali yung buhay ng mga tao nung panahon ng 19th century. So here are some invention or discoveries happened in the 19th century, which are the steam engine, the locomotive, the telephone, the telegraph, the internal combustion engine, and the ripple. Also, we have electricity light bulb and many more. So all the invention discoveries happened in the 19th century is related to the industrial industry. What I mean is, sobrang related lang siya sa mga manufacturing products or equipment ng mga panahon na ito. Kaya tinawag ang 19th century as Industrial Revolution. Next is Science and Technology in the 20th century. It is a German coal tar industry and the industry's research laboratory. Technology not completely dependent on science. So it means nung 20th century hindi na naging independent or hindi na nakadepende ang technology sa science. Like ngayon na yung mga cellphone natin, nakakagawa na tayo ng iba't ibang klase o uri nito. Marami nang lumalabas na latest phone. Depende sa tatak ng phone. Kada isang taon. Hindi ko tulad dati na abutin pa ng ilang taon para makapag-release ng isang magandang produkto dahil nga sila ay nakadepende sa siyensya. Ngayon, hindi na sila totally nakadepende. Nakadepende pa rin but not that so much na kaya nang gawin ng technology yung mga gusto nilang gawin without consent of science. But still, science and technology is still related. Because science is knowing while technology is doing. The growing of interdependence of technology and scientific. A massive amount of new technologies were developed in the 20th century such as television, radio, electric refrigeration, personal computer, and many more. So, technically in the 20th century is yung panahon natin, mas marami nang umuusbong, dahil nga nagkaroon ng industrial revolution nung 19th century, yung 20th century ang nagsilbing parang labasan lahat ng mga naging pag-aaral nung panahon ng 19th century na hanggang sa ngayon pa naman ay nararanasan pa rin natin. That's all. Thank you.